I am back with a brand new DC update. I just got done watching my Diamondbacks beat the Phillies in the third game of the NLCS series. So we're going to at least get 5 games out of the series, and I hope the Diamondbacks can pull it out, but we'll find out. But I am back with a brand new DC update, and if you couldn't tell by the headlines, we're going to look at how disastrous James Gunn's numbers are for specifically one project that he did, but it just matches everything else that he's done and just the trajectory of the DC in general. Plus, there's a really cool DC Comics, couple of cool DC Comics projects coming up. There are 3 that I'm actually going to talk about in this video. So let's get started on the news. So let's talk about the DC Comics news first. DC officially announces a brand new alternate version of Batman Death in the Family where Robin lives instead of dies. Now this is when I started collecting comics. I found the first 2 issues of this particular storyline back in 1987 at a used bookstore, picked them up, then found the nearest comic shop, and have been collecting and reading Batman ever since. And this story was interesting because there was a call-in number where you could vote on whether he lived or died, and it was recently announced that it was separated by only like 4,000 votes whether he lived or died, or it might have been 900 votes. I think it was 900 votes, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But it was close. I was surprised at how close it was on whether he lived or died. So we all know what happened after he died. We have that story. Well, DC is going to officially release the version where he lived, which is going to be interesting. I am very much looking forward to this. I'm going to definitely pick this up. I believe it comes out sometime in December. I will definitely be adding that to my bag and doing a review on it. There's also some more DC Comics news coming up. The other DC Comics news is coming out of the New York Comic Con. There's some Batman gossip that we're going to have the return of the 3 Jokers. I would be interested in this. This is one of the better stories that I've seen come out of DC in a while. And this, between this and also the death of Robin being reversed, probably just for that specific comic, it's going to be interesting to see some of these stories. And the other one that's cool is earlier this year I bought the Hush hardcover special edition. And one thing I haven't revealed yet, and I'm going to still do a review on that at some point, but the last couple of pages, there are like 7 new pages done by Jim Lee, and it sets up for Hush Part 2. And so they do plan on doing a Hush Part 2 follow-up. So there's some cool things coming down the pike from DC Comics. All right, so this trails off what when I talked about the sale of Warner Brothers Discovery. It's a well-known fact. And here's what the Disc Father, he did a post where it says, okay, here's what I've heard. None of this is concrete, obviously. Talks between Warner Brothers and Universal happened last year, which we do know that Zaslav did meet with Warner Brothers, or with Universal. Zaslav doesn't want Warner Brothers long-term, which makes sense. Zaslav came from Discovery Plus. He knows reality TV. He doesn't know creative TV, and he definitely doesn't know how to manage DC. Universal wants Warner Brothers and hopes to have them by the end of 2024. If a deal does happen, it would be for Warner Brothers and DC only. Well, in regards to that, DC is owned by Warner Brothers, so if they sell Warner Brothers, DC is going with it. So it would be a sale of Warner Brothers so that Zaslav would be back just with his realistic stuff. And I envision we'll have another change in the HBO Max, app at that stage. We'll see going forward. Leave it to Zaslav to take the HBO Max and get rid of the HBO part and only keep the Max. It just doesn't make sense. The business decisions that guy makes just does not make sense. Now, if you guys haven't seen this is something you want to look up. It says DC and Warner Brothers Discovery are officially being taken to trial for Matt Reeves stealing the Batman story from Chris Wozniak. And if you guys haven't heard this story, it's pretty wild. Chris Wozniak supposedly wrote this Batman story many, many, many years ago. He presented it to DC Comics, hoping to get it published, and they basically stole it. They didn't want to do his story, told him to go away, and they took the story and actually turned it into the movie. And they actually have tried to sue Chris himself. It's some wild stuff that's been going on. The fact that it's actually being taken to trial is freaking awesome, because it's about time that people start holding these companies accountable for the stuff that they do. And for them to steal his story and turn it into a movie is ridiculous, especially when they had Ben Affleck's Batman story ready to go. It's just par for the course for Warner Brothers. So I'm glad that they're finally being sued for that. Also, I picked up Superman, the complete animated series, on Prime Day this past week. There were a couple of days where stuff was reduced. I'm going to start doing videos when Prime Day does roll around, 3 or 4 times a year, and show you guys and give you links to the deals. I picked this up for $20. I don't own this. I have several different versions of Batman the Animated Series. I have the original 4-volume release on DVD. I also have the super duper box set that they made on DVD, and actually have the pamphlet signed by Kevin Conroy himself. And I also have the Blu-ray deluxe version of Batman the Animated Series. But I never owned Superman the Complete Animated Series, so I picked this up. The digital code isn't working, which I've reached out to Warner Brothers about, but I was excited to add this to my collection. So in the future, when these sales go up, I am going to do a video about them and give you guys links, and those are affiliate links that will help out my channel. So I'm going to start doing that going forward. So now let's take a look at the numbers from James Gunn. So if you remember, they talked about how awesome James Gunn's, properties are performing, and we know that the Suicide Squad was a huge bomb at the box office. Now, Samba TV, the one that also gave you the streaming numbers for Zack Snyder's Justice League, showed how the Peacemaker finale did in its first 4 days of streaming. It only had 584,000 views. That's it. That is pathetic. Those are horrible streaming numbers, guys. They keep talking about how awesome this show was, but people didn't care. It's not a mainstream product. How it got a second season is beyond me. If you notice that Warner Brothers will take the lowest performing directors and products and continue with them. But the stuff that actually made them money and brought more people into the theaters are the things that they're fighting against, which just boggles my mind. So at this stage, Warner Brothers is still a sinking ship, and nothing is going to get them out of it. His only option is going to be to sell to Universal. I figured that was going to happen. And every day it's looking more and more like that is definitely going to be the plan moving forward. And I'll be glad to see somebody who possibly cares about these products take over and move forward with them. Because, everything that James Gunn has done for DC up to this point, the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, had childish, stupid things. He didn't take the character seriously. And, everyone talks about how Zack Snyder butchered Superman and Batman. But you have to remember, he didn't write those movies. The thing about James Gunn is he is the writer and the director on these projects. So you have nowhere to point except directly at James Gunn. And we do know that things started to get better with Black Adam, and then he came in and announced his reboot prematurely, and it's caused all the films since to bomb. It's a direct result of that. There is no question about it. All right, guys, so there's my update for the day. I do appreciate the support. We will see you on the next video.